I remember it like yesterday when Matt came down the stairs and said so casually with a smile, I booked a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile. I thought to myself, is this real? Can we really leave our amazing careers, friends, and family? Fast forward 10 months later, after all the hard conversations, endless checklists, and heartfelt goodbyes, we were heading to the airport with one backpack each, about to set out for a multi-year adventure around the world. Filled with excitement, we had no idea what to expect, but we knew it would be a fun ride. Join us as we share what we are learning on our journey of a lifetime. This is Passport Joy Travel Talk with Nikki and Matt Javitt.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Matt Javitt alongside Nikki Javitt from PassportJoy.com. We're sharing our travels around the world here on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you're going to love this episode. It's a recap over the last month from all the cities we visited, from Munich, Amsterdam, Jena, Vienna, Prague, and Budapest. So it's going to be a fun one. As always, go to PassportJoy.com and you can click on the podcast link and you'll get the show notes for this episode because we named some things that you want to check out and see there. And while you're there, please sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter gives you a quick look weekly, goes out weekly, on what we've done for the last week and what we're thinking about doing the next week. Nowhere else can you find that except for the newsletter, so look for that. And as always, please subscribe and rate and review this podcast. It helps us a ton. A recent review from Happy Maddie said, hard not to enjoy the story of these two and their travels. Glad I found it. Can't wait to check back next week. So thank you for that review. And if you can do similar, go on iTunes, just give us a quick rating and a quick review. It helps us a great deal. Okay, let's get into the episode. Hope you enjoy it. And as always, safe travels. All right, let's get into it. We're going to give you an overview of what we've been doing here in Europe. For those that have been following along, you know that we went from Hong Kong, and this is the high level, and we'll get into details of each little city, but went from Hong Kong, we flew into Munich, Germany, then Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and then a small town in Germany called Jena, or Jena, as they pronounced it. Then we went over to, via bus, we went to Prague in the Czech Republic, and then Vienna, Austria, and Budapest. And then after Budapest, we'll be meeting friends in Sicily. And then from there, we're going to go north to the UK and Ireland, and we're going to meet some other friends there. And I'm going to spend some time in Lisbon. But so at a very high level, that's where we're at right now. That's what we're doing. And so we'll dive into it. So we landed in Munich, Germany. The reason we had planned to be there is because we had two friends that we had met in Greece last summer when we were in Greece at our volunteer effort at the Workaway in Perdica, the town of Perdica on the Aegean island of Greece. We were there for a month. We met this amazing couple from Munich and we hit it off with them, spent some time with them there and just stayed in touch over the last 8 months or so. And then when we knew we were flying into Europe, we talked to them and they invited us to their home and we stayed with them. So it was amazing. They were great hosts and very kind in everything they did for us and showed us a lot of the highlights of that town. Extremely safe town. I mean, mind-boggling safe. Coming from America, there's safe parts of cities in America, and I know that news tends to paint the picture of violence all the time in America, but there's absolutely, it's safe. But Munich, it was unbelievable how safe we felt. So that was a gorgeous town. But the highlight for me was we had one day where Nikki dressed up in a German outfit. And you see the photos, a link in the show notes, and you've probably seen this if you follow us at all. But she dressed up in a traditional German outfit, which was super cute, and I loved it. And all day long she was in this. What was funny was, though, is the host that we were staying with also put it on. So they were like a team, like both of them. I didn't have an outfit, nor did Flo, the other host, the guy in the couple. He didn't have an outfit either. So they were both in their little outfits and it was a lot of fun. And it was like 11:15 or so. We're about to head out for the day. And she comes in and says, hey, she has to go meet friends for lunch at the park. So she was going to go hang out with us. So she goes and takes her outfit off and Nikki is stuck with her traditional German outfit on with me and my buddy. We're just in traditional clothes. So Nikki was such a trooper. She hung with it. She was like, screw it, I'm going to wear it. And she looked amazing because there's a lot of other people wearing this traditional outfit because what was going on was it was Munich's Fruhlingfest, which is essentially Springfest that happens their spring version of Oktoberfest, which is huge in October. And so we got to go to the actual facilities that hold this Oktoberfest, where everybody gets these massive mugs and everybody's drinking and partying. And it's mostly like 20-year-olds, but there's definitely, it's a mixed crowd, but they're playing like American music, American rock music, and they're just having a blast. So for me, that was a highlight because it wasn't something we'd expected. We didn't know what was going on in town. And we were just kind of just walking on through that part of the city because we were checking out a massive flea market that we saw. We're looking at all these cool antiques and all this stuff. And the Spring Fest was going on as well. So we went into there and then we ended up getting a couple of beers and just hanging out for about 3 or 4 hours and just really taking it in. So that was my Munich highlight, was Fruhlingfest and Nikki dressing up in a traditional German outfit.
Yeah, for me in Munich, I think it was just like the picturesque town. Everything was like perfect. I mean, I can't even describe to you how perfect it was. There wasn't a gum wrapper on the ground. There wasn't a speck of dirt anywhere to be found. There were like street sweepers that would clean the streets. I mean, cobblestone roads. I mean, it was like too good to be true. And just to harp on Matt's point about, how sometimes when you watch the news and, we're like fear-mongered into think that things are more dangerous than it appears. We were actually, like, our hosts were saying, no, it is so safe here. Like, you don't understand. Like, there has not been a murder here in like 3 years. And when they said that, we kind of just like looked at each other like, yeah, right. Like we rolled our eyes. And so when we were on our own one day at lunch, we Googled it and we went on their like government website just to like fact checked it. And it was true. Like they had not had some sort of like a violent act happen for over 3 years. And we were like dying laughing because we were just like, I can't imagine like living in a town where nothing happens. Like it was just really funny. So the sense of safety that you had when you walked around there, it was just out of this world. Like I'd never been to a place like that where everything was just so like in its own place. So it was just refreshing and nice to be in a place like that. And then another thing that I really liked about Munich was their park game was so strong. I mean, you would go and walk around in these parks for hours and just get lost. And people would be laying out in parks, like in full on bathing suits and just sunbathing, having picnics in their parks. People would be walking their dogs. People would be like having this like full on setup of like wines and cheeses and just like having a really nice time with their friends in the park. And it was, I guess there's similar things in the United States where people do that, but the scale of how it was in Munich was just so large and I had not seen that before. And like on a Saturday or Sunday, that was like the thing to do, was just like spend the day in the park. And the grounds of the parks were so well kept. Like flower beds were just so pristine and there were like pictures made out of flowers in the parks and it was just very, very nice. And so I really enjoyed just walking around in the parks and seeing what they had to offer. So for me, that was really nice.
Cool. And then we were very thankful for our host there. And so from there, we caught a flight to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam we had planned for a very long time to be in Amsterdam during King's Day because all of the Dutch that we had met on the road on our travels continue to tell us, like, if you're going to travel to Amsterdam, try to visit on King's Day. And King's Day on this year happened to be April 27th. So we got in there on the 25th and spent 5 days there. We flew in and stayed in Haarlem, which is I think it's on the north of Amsterdam. It's like a town or a township of that area. But we landed there, spent the night there because we got in super late and we got a cheap Airbnb because the prices were inflated a bit for King's Day. And then we had planned we were in Amsterdam proper for those next 4 days, which we stayed in a hotel. Actually, is a nice hotel, more than we used points to do it. But it also gave us the sense of, obviously hotels are amazing and it was a nice one, but it's so much different than Airbnb. And so you begin to remember the luxuries of an Airbnb on how they treat you because the hosts, the people at the hotel, just their customer service was okay, but it wasn't great. Kind of what we're used to in Airbnb. So it gave us a good mix there. But anyway, the day before we went into Amsterdam proper, we went out to the Botanical Gardens to see all the tulips because it was the end of April. So all these tulips were in bloom. And we just at the last minute, a contact that I had in town said, you got to go see the tulips. And she suggested us taking a train ride. But then we went to the station and we found a package to take us to the Botanical Gardens of Keukenhof is how I was trying to say it. But they ended up, based on what she said, they're the best. It's the best botanical garden in the Netherlands. And it was like the perfect timing of the bloom because they're only in season for, I think, 6 weeks. So I'll let Nikki get into detail about that because I know that was a highlight as well.
Yeah, for me, it was one of my favorite things in Amsterdam to do. So the Tulip Gardens are only available for a certain amount of time, but it was just like endless rows and gardens of tulips, varying types of tulips and things that you would look at and not even think that was a tulip, that was actually a tulip. All the different colors and just varieties were just like mind blowing to me. And yeah, it was just really, really serene and just very, very beautiful. And I posted a lot of pictures on my Instagram, and it's just like kind of mind blowing to see that many types of tulips exist. Like in my head growing up, I just thought of like the red and yellow and pink and white tulips, but I don't even know how many different kinds of colors I saw, and tulips that had like stripes on them and tulips that were like larger than the size of like my hand if I were to fully extend it open. And yeah, that was just really a nice thing just to walk along and see that and all the people taking pictures of that. And you can get really close to them. But the funny thing is that there were people in these tulip gardens, tourists like ourselves that were like touching these tulips, and you would think like, why are you doing that? Like the tulip is going to die. But that was just kind of funny to see. But another thing that I really enjoyed besides the tulip gardens is that they had a lot of churches and things that you could go around and see, and little pubs and like restaurants and areas and canals. And it sort of reminded me of like a smaller version of Venice, like if you have ever been to Venice in Italy. But yeah, it was just like all these little alleyways that you could get lost in and amongst the cobblestone roads and things like that. So it was large, I guess, but it was small enough that you could walk around and amongst like the little, I don't know what you call them, bridges over the canals, and just see like, old cathedrals and churches and pubs and restaurants and cheese shops and whatnot. But people would be not on gondolas per se, but their own personal boats and within the canals and just be riding on that. And it just reminded me of Venice on a smaller scale.
Yeah, and Amsterdam is really cool in that regard. And we were lucky enough to have a host, Lois, who had been a friend of ours through business and through my work. We'd actually spent travel with her on multiple other countries and continents around the world. But she lives there. She lives near Amsterdam. So when we were making our arrangements to come in town, we reached out to her and said, "Hey, would you be available?" Blah, blah, blah. And she said, absolutely. She stepped up and made it happen. And so she walked us around town and gave us an awesome tour and got to see a few of the old, like 300-year-old bars and went out to dinner. It was a really pleasant surprise. And we knew that we were going to see her, but we didn't know it was going to go to that extent and all the things that she did for us that day. And then she ended up giving us tickets to the Ajax soccer game. So that was one of my bucket list things for this year. And it was going to be a difficult time for me to do it based on our timing in Europe and the World Cup coming up. There wasn't a lot of chances for us to see a soccer game in a stadium. So I actually had a chance to do that. And that was a blast to see their final game of the season. And they won at the home stadium in front of about, I think it must have been like 30,000 people, but that was a fun time. So that was one of my highlights as well. And then the other highlight that came out of nowhere. So we went to Mass. We went to a 5:00 Mass on Saturday at this will be in the show notes, but I'm going to screw up how to say this. The Creedberg Church. And I found it because it was an English speaking church, and we don't always get a chance to hear the masses in the English. So when we can, we try to do that. But there was a singer there, and I think he was probably in his 50s, but his voice at Mass was like nothing I'd ever heard in my life. And I can say that it was almost as like he was an opera singer that did that for the church on the weekends as well. And then he played a cello at the very end, and it was just moving. And it was definitely unforgettable. And if you're ever in, and what's funny is I ended up going on TripAdvisor. I was trying to find his contact information to see, like, did this guy put on operas or whatever? But when I put in like cello Amsterdam in the church, there was a bunch of people on TripAdvisor actually talking about the guy. And a lot of people were saying like, hey, I'm not even Catholic, and I go to this mass on Saturdays to hear this guy because it's so moving and it's so amazing. So it's something to consider even if you're not of Catholic faith. If you're in Amsterdam, to check this guy out. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm saying 5 o'clock Saturday, but I'm not, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if it was a Saturday or Sunday night mass, but I'll check on that for you, and I'll put it in the show notes just because, no, you know what? It was definitely Saturday because we went to the soccer game on Sunday. So it was Saturday. So I'll put that in the show notes, and then you can, if you're ever in Amsterdam, definitely a highlight to hear this guy, because it looks like he's been doing it for years, and it looks like that's the time he does it. So that was my highlight. And so from Amsterdam, we took a 11-hour bus ride to Jena, Germany. And we took the bus with this Flixbus. Is freaking awesome. It is easy to get the tickets online. They have a great app, and it's super cheap if you do it about a month in advance. It's kind of like as you get closer to the date, the price does tick up, but it's still never really that expensive. But we took a bus from Amsterdam to Jena, and it made a few stops along the way, but it was a great way to see the countryside, and it wasn't that bad. The seats were big. It had Wi-Fi on board. We knocked out, I'd listened to podcasts and some books and stuff. Nikki listened to music and read books. And so it was a great way to kind of pass the time of that day. And the reason we were going to Jena was I had coached a basketball player. His name is Emmanuel McElroy. I coached him in junior college. He was amazing. After junior college, he played 2 years at Cincinnati. That team was number one in the country at the time. They did not win it all, but they were number one for most of that season, and Mac was a big part of that. And then he played, he had his shots at the NBA, never broke through those doors, but he was like CBA Player of the Year, CBA Rookie of the Year, and he won the Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, but unbelievable player. But in the end, he's played German basketball for the last 15 years. So I really wanted to go see him just because we've been a big part of each other's lives and stayed in contact all these years. So we made plans to go to Jena, and that was a big thing to get a chance, because he had actually been fighting a foot injury for the last about 6 weeks. So for him to play in his final game was a big deal. And it all worked out as it always does. And we had a chance to see Mac in his final game of the season. And he had crucial plays and crucial minutes, especially coming off an injury like he did. He did not start the game, but he came in and played great. And down the stretch, he made a lot of great plays, and they ended up winning the game. So we had VIP for all that. He set us up nicely, and I got a chance to see a packed crowd and cheer Mac on, and then just to see how he interacted with the fans and everything was really cool. There was this little girl that brought him a framed picture, and he took off his jersey and gave it to her. So that was a lot of fun. And then because it was the last game of the season, we had a chance to hang out and party with the team afterwards. And when I say the team, it was like the owner, the coaches, all the players families, and we hung out and they picked up the tab at this German bar. So it was a blast. It was a lot of fun, and just to get to see Mac and kind of that element and hang out with Mac for a couple of days was a lot of fun. So that's why we're in Jena. And then that town, I don't know, it's one of those things where I get it, like traveling from the US and going to Europe, you don't want to just go to like a small town and hang out. But if you had like an extended period of time and you could mix in smaller towns along your travel plans, I would definitely encourage it, because that town was like so peaceful and quaint and had all these little shops and cafes and just little nooks. Yeah, great shopping, and it is super safe, and you could stay out at night. I mean, that was kind of the plus and minus, is there everything kind of shut down around 10 p.m. But during the day there was a lot of stuff you could do, and it was neat. You can just walk around. One day I just got out and walked like 3 or 4 miles around the town and just checked everything out. But yeah, Jena was awesome. So then from there we jumped on another Flixbus and headed over to Prague, where the history of Prague obviously is deep. And so to be able to get there, and it was a marathon weekend as well. So they had this big marathon going on. There was a lot of buzz in town about the marathon, and you could see everybody setting up. But Prague is amazing. I'm going to let Nikki jump into her list a little bit and go over what she loved about it.
For Prague, for me, I loved it. The city has so much to do. I mean, it's a never-ending list, but I'll highlight a couple things that I really enjoyed, and that one of them was, so as a little girl, I grew up going to private Catholic school at a Catholic school called Infant Jesus of Prague, nonetheless. And so we had the chance to visit the Infant Jesus of Prague Cathedral in Prague, Czech Republic. And it was just like a really neat experience for me just to see the actual cathedral in Prague itself and walk around and go see the little museum. And in the museum, they had all these little nativity sets. The nativity sets were scenes of Jesus being born and the take around the world of the nativity scene. So they would have like the take in Costa Rica and the take in the Czech Republic and the take in the USA and so on. In Guatemala, you name a country, they had it. It was really cool just to see that. And then also myself and my middle sister were both married at that church in Flossmoor in Illinois. So it's just something special and near and dear that I hold to my heart. So it was really cool to see that. And then another cool thing that I really liked, and I just stumbled upon and didn't even know it existed until I did my research before we got there, was they have this John Lennon wall there. And I guess the significance of it upon doing my further research is that when Lennon died, he was seen as this political pacifist sort of hero for many of the Czechs. And it was because Western pop music had been banned by the Communist Party. And there were people that, when they were listening to this pop music, were jailed for just even playing it. And so this wall was sort of this like homage to John Lennon, and people started painting political graffiti and Beatles lyrics on this wall in Prague. And so at the time existed these, what they called the secret police. And what they did was they tried to paint over the graffiti and the sayings with white paint, but the Czech youth at the time and all the visiting tourists would continue to come out during the nighttime so they wouldn't get caught, and they would paint their own Lennon contributions and peace messages. And it just continued as a tradition over the years. And so now it still exists, and it's just a really cool thing to go and visit, and just, it's very colorful. And there was like even a guy out there that was playing on his guitar and singing Beatles songs. So it's just something cool to see, and it's a part of history, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Prague was really cool. And then for me, it just like feels romantic, and I love how easy it is to get around there, because we didn't stay in the city proper because it was, like I said, it was the marathon weekend, and so the prices were inflated. So we stayed outside the main city a bit, but it was so easy to get in and out of town. And we did some shopping and brought some groceries back and kept the prices down a little bit. And our Airbnb was really nice that stay. We really enjoyed it. And then we actually through Meetup, meetup.com. I'm not sure how much we've talked about this, but we might want to do an episode or talk about it a little bit further. But meetup.com is a website that we use to find connections around the world for different interests. Essentially, it's so I put in there like technology and professional networking, and you can just kind of pick and choose the things that you want to focus on. And then they have meetups. It's a US-based company, but around the world, it's picking up a bunch. But they have meetups or group gatherings where people have like interests that go do this. So we've done this for, like I said, I did a technical one. I did multiple technical ones, and then we did like an English speaking one before in Italy. I'll talk about one that I also did in Vienna shortly. But in Prague, we did it was for a free co-work space so Nikki and I can go work on the blog, podcast, and our other creative stuff that we're working on. But it gave us a day to have one free day in a co-work space, which was really nice. And then ended up having lunch with the owner and just getting to know people and seeing how they do their digital working outside of kind of like their freelance community. So I like that. That was a highlight for me. Just as I like to see how other people are doing things around the world and kind of check out how they're working, and especially the digital nomad aspect of it, and then hear what projects they're working on and what they're doing. And it was really neat to hear this guy. This guy had opened up. He was an American. His wife was Czech, and when he went over there, he had opened up this co-work space because there was no other ones out there. So he opened it up, and he was celebrating his 8th year when we were actually there. So it was really nice to hear his story, all the things he had been through, and just kind of the business aspect of starting your own business. That was really neat. And then from there, we went to Vienna, and Vienna was another about 3 or 4 hour Flixbus trip over there, and it was real easy. And we get there, and Vienna was gorgeous. It was obviously a lot of these cities have some similarities, but there's things that stick out about each of them. And Vienna was kind of a shopping, I'll tell you this, I didn't realize the cultural significance of Vienna around the world until I was doing our research prior to arriving there, that it is won first place around the world multiple times because of its cultural diversity when it comes to like economic influence, music influence, all these different ratings that they have, and they measure it against other cities around the world. And Vienna continues to be in the top 5 or 10 globally. I was not aware of that. You might be hearing this and saying, yeah, Matt, of course, Vienna's Vienna, but I was not aware of that. And to get there and be around it all and see the melting pot that it was pretty awesome. And then just to be around the people, and we had an amazing host that showed us and gave us some good tips and took us in. I'll let Nikki highlight that a little bit.
Yeah, for me, I found this really cool area. It was called like the Danube Island area, and it was outside the city. So we had to take the train to get to it because it would have been like an hour walk from where we were, because we stayed right in the heart of Vienna. But what it is this really cool like nature area right on the Danube River. And you could like rent bikes, and you could ride your bicycles on the sidewalk area on either side of the river, along the river. You could, there was a lot of people that were like skateboarding or inline skating. And then there was like a sandy area right in front of, there was cafes and restaurants that were like serving, like little finger foods or drinks, cocktails, and coffees. And you could lay out and sunbathe in these areas. And there were people that were actually getting in the river and swimming. And then there was this really neat thing that we saw, and I'd never seen this before. So there was this contraption, like a pulley system, and it was motorized, hooked up to this motor. People were water skiing and holding on to this contraption that would pull you along, and you had water skis on, and then there were like 2 little ramps that you could jump over if you wanted to, or you could just learn how to water ski while you were being pulled on this pulley system that was like suspended in the air above you. And I thought that was super cool. It would be like a neat way for someone who had never water skied before, learn how to water ski, or for someone who was learning or wanted to learn how to do like jumps or flips or whatever off of a ramp to do that. So they had that as an option. You could pay to do that. And I saw people doing it with and without life jackets, but that was there as an option. There was like a beach volleyball area. People were outdoors, like at a picnic area, barbecuing. There was people just like throwing down a blanket in the grassy area, having picnics and eating. So it was just a really cool way to like get outside of the city and, take a walk or do whatever. But I kind of like those things now, like these outdoor like adventures, or, we spend a lot of time in these cities exploring, and it's nice to see the touristy areas and see the sights and, go to the castles and do our shopping and go to the pubs and the bars and the restaurants and do that. But it's also nice to see these outdoor areas like the parks and things and just spend some time outdoors. And so this was a really cool thing that I had found, and I actually found it on this girl's blog. So we made like a little half day out of it, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
parks are becoming an absolute highlight for me, especially over in Europe. They're gorgeous. They have wonderful parks. And then for me, the meetup, I also did another meetup in Vienna, which was kind of it's called expats getting together or whatnot. And essentially it was by the way, meetup is absolutely free. I mean, I'm on there for free. Nikki's on there for free. And then you just find things that make sense, and you just try to attend it and you show up. Some of them do charge a cost if you're trying to go to an event. This event did cost €10 to attend. And it was essentially a meetup for the Armenian embassy, was showcasing their culture at a local museum in Vienna. So I was like, okay, this sounds amazing. I'm gonna get a chance to interact with Vienna business people and then hear about Armenian culture. So that's exactly what it was. Nikki did not go because she just wasn't feeling up to the weather, and she was working on some creativity projects of her own. And so I went on my own. I actually went with the host that we were staying with because she was free for the night. So we both went, and she loved it because she had never been to that museum, and she thought it was a unique way for her to meet people as well. We took it all in, checked out all the Armenian stuff. because the neighborhood that we were in, she went to school near there. So she had a bunch of local pubs that she wanted to take me out to. So we went to this one pub that was overlooked the city. That was really neat. And then we ended up meeting these two other ladies that were in town from Budapest. And then the four of us went over to this old, extremely old, it was like 200-year pub. And that was a blast because essentially it was one of those pubs that they didn't renovate at all for the last 200 years. So it was very old, and the same waitresses that have been working there for 30 years or whatnot. So that was a lot of fun. And then talk about the pubs real quick. That was kind of a surprise for Nikki and I, was they smoke in almost all their pubs in Vienna. There's extreme smoking. So that's like the one thing out of the major cities that we've seen that was kind of like, we were kind of shocked by the fact that we were walking out of places smelling like ashtrays, which I'm a cigar guy, so that I've smoked cigars before, and that's common if I choose to do that. But this is just like a regular, everywhere you go as you walk down the street, if there's a pub, you can just smell the smoke coming out. So that was strange for us, especially a city at that level. We were kind of surprised by that. But Vienna was amazing. So wrapping that up, then we took another Flixbus. It was only 3 hours then to Budapest, and Budapest is a highlight and a surprise, and it's awesome. The viewpoints around the city and how gorgeous it is.
Yeah, it is probably hands down one of the best cities that I've been to thus so far for viewpoints, with the exception of San Pedro de Atacama, Chile. But anyways, so the viewpoints of the city, there are so many places that you can go to like overlook the city. It's just like never ending, but I'm going to go over a couple of them. So one of the first things that you can do is you can walk over across this chain bridge, and it's the bridge that connects both Buda and the Pest neighborhoods, which is the western and eastern sides of Budapest. And the bridge itself spans over the river Danube. And then another place you can go to is called the Buda Castle. And you have two options once you get here. So once you get there, once you actually cross over the chain bridge, there's a little place that you can go and buy a ticket to go up the little funicular cable car, and it'll take you to the top of Castle Hill. And then you can see the really great view of Budapest, or you can actually just, instead of going to that cable car and taking it straight up, if you just veer off to the left, you can walk all the way up and explore the inside of the castle and all the grounds of the castle, and it's completely free. I highly suggest you do that. Matt and I got lost in there for like an hour, and there's tons of other people doing it, but it's just really cool. I mean, there's tons of great pictures that you can take, and like little nooks and crannies that you can just go in, and you have a lot more options to like see over the side of the castle and take good pictures. So that's another great option to do, is the Buda Castle. And then once you get to the top of that, if you stay there, just a short distance away from there is a church, and it's called Matthias Church, and I think it's just St. Matthew's Church. But just a short distance from there is this thing, and it's called Fisherman's Bastian Viewpoint, and it is hands down like the best views of the city. And there's like 7 different lookout locations that you can go to, and it overlooks like panoramic view of all of Budapest. And I mean, spend like, I don't know, half an hour here, and you'll see like 100 people taking selfies from every single angle. But there's a little cafe up top too. You can get a little cappuccino, or they even sell like mini shots that you can do shots at. It was kind of funny that we saw that, but because it's like literally right across the street from a church, so you kind of feel bad if you did that. But anyways, it is just fabulous, like all the viewpoints that you can see. But yeah, I really enjoyed it just because it's just breathtaking, the views that you have, and all of that stuff that I just mentioned. It's just all for free, and it's within a short walking distance from each other, like minutes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the city feels it doesn't feel like a major city. It really doesn't. When you're walking the streets, because of how close everything is and how intimate it seems, it doesn't seem like a city of 1.7 million. And then I think the all-in number, as you look at all the different neighborhoods around the city, it's about 3 million. But once you get to those viewpoints and you see how large it is, then that's when you know, like, okay, this is a major city, and it's gorgeous. My highlight was probably one of the coolest bars I've ever been to in my life. It's called Zimpla Kurt. It was funny, when we were in Vietnam, I had met a guy at a cafe, and I was talking to him, and he was listening to our story a little bit, and then he was like, "Where are you going?" And I told him next. And when I mentioned Budapest, he said, "Oh my God, you have to go to this bar," and he named it. And he said it was the coolest bar he had been to in his life. And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I wrote it down and kept the notes. And when we got here, I was like, "We got to go to this bar," because the guy said it, and he was right. It's essentially, if you would take an old ruined, because a lot of these buildings are old ruins, and they gutted them out, and then just, in this case, it's like they almost brought in, it's like they went to like 4 different flea markets and picked out all the coolest stuff and said, okay, put all this stuff on the walls. And that's all it is like a hodgepodge of chaos, but it all makes sense when you get there and you just walk around, and you can spend hours just looking at all this stuff on the walls. And then they're playing great music in different areas. And there's just like little cutouts at cubby rooms where you can go and just hang out. And it was just a really neat thing. The other thing too to remember, we were shocked by Budapest, is all the bachelor and bachelorette parties going on. We didn't realize it, but this is kind of like a party hub. I had no idea coming in. I really didn't have any expectations of Budapest. I just heard how awesome it was. But yeah, there's a lot of bachelor and bachelorette parties as we were walking around. Not even if it was bachelor parties, but like groups of dudes is what we saw a lot of. Like groups of, and they wore costumes. So it's like groups of like 8 to 10 dudes hanging out a lot. And it wasn't just like 20-year-olds. It was like 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds. It seems to be a good hangout for that. But we really enjoyed this city. This Budapest has really jumped to the top of my list as far as places where I could see people really come to travel and being here a long time. Well, that wraps up our current last 3 or 4 weeks here in Europe. We'll try to mix these in every once in a while because I know people want to hear these types of highlights and mix these in. But like I said before, now we're off to Sicily, and then we're going north to the UK and Ireland after that. So thanks for tuning in, and safe travels.
Travels, we use the Skyscanner app. It's a comprehensive, fast way to compare millions of flights to find you the cheapest deal. They also find hotels or car hires. When you find your flights and click to book, Skyscanner will link you through directly to the airline or travel agent and never charge you a commission, and there are no hidden fees. We love the unique price alert email that will alert you if the price of your flight goes up or down. This service is totally free of charge, and you can change your alerts or unsubscribe at any time. Matt loves Skyscanner because you can search for flights by alternative airports and dates. The app allows you to be creative and save money. Check out passportjoy.com/scan. Again, passportjoy.com/scan to learn more about Skyscanner and why we love it. We are big fans of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is the world-renowned business and life coach. Prior to leaving for our extended travel journey, we attended the Tony Robbins event. It was called Unleash the Power Within. It happened in San Jose, California. It was a 3.5-day immersive event focused on breaking through your limitations so that you can have the most extraordinary life. And the event focused on personal growth and personal goals. And as most of you know, Matt attributes most of his success to Tony and thought leaders just like Tony. And I'll admit, and up until Matt had asked me to come along with him to the Unleash the Power Within event, I had zero interest in events like this. And I'm really glad I said yes and I attended the event. The event to me was so much more than the knowledge that I gained from it. It was the energy that was there. It was palpable. And while I was there, I just felt awakened and a sense of renewal that I had never felt before. I even made a really good friend that I still talk to this day. Everything from financial freedom to health and relationships was discussed. This event had a profound effect on how I view life. The events like this are not cheap, but honestly, I just look at it as an investment in yourself. Check out passportjoy.com/Tony. Again, passportjoy.com/Tony to check out more information about events like this. And to check out more tips and tools we use during our travels, check out passportjoy.com/tools.
right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. We really liked it a lot, putting that together for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, rate, review, subscribe for the podcast, please. It helps us a ton. And thank you for those that have done that already. And thank you for the comments and the side notes to the newsletter and things like that. We appreciate all the encouragement because, as you know, we're doing this to kind of talk about our travel and give back and give thoughts and ideas. So any encouragement we really appreciate. We are pumped. We are wrapping up our time in Sicily now, and we got the UK and Ireland ahead of us and a Portugal trip. So we're super excited. So watch for the updates coming through, and we will continue to keep you updated and give you insight on all that we're doing. Thank you so much. Enjoy the journey.
Bum